All right. Welcome everyone to the Angular Vienna August meetup. In case you don't know me, most of you probably have seen me behind the stage. This is my first time giving an intro for the meetup. The cause of that is that all of our push-based team is stranded in Sicily because the Etna broke out and all flights are cancelled. So, warmest regards from all my colleagues. They wish you a beautiful meetup. Tonight, we have a super cool sponsor. We will tell you more about that in a second. Two awesome talks, one by Debowski and one by our serial speaker, Dmytro Mezhenskyi. And in the end, there will be a Raffle. Sponsors, as usual, the Angular Austria Association, Pushbase, the company I work for, and the main sponsor for tonight, SimStation. Thank you very much for making this event possible. They will introduce themselves in a moment. All right. Every person that asks a question after the talks will get a Raffle ticket. And we have two nice prizes, two JetBrains licenses that we will raffle off right after the talks. All right, now for the talks. First talk will be Debowski from SimStation. His talk is called Conquering Technical Debt Without Losing Your Mind. I heard there will be some cussing and swearing in it, but he didn't lose his mind, I think. Then we will have a short break for snacks and everything. By the way, in case you don't know our house rules, the fridge is there, snacks are there, help yourself, grab everything you like and have fun. The second talk will be by Dmytro Mezhenskyi. How Angular embraces AI, tools, skills, and experiments. In case you want to enter stage, the links for the CFP are on the Meetup page. Feel free to sign up. We would love to have more of our community on the stage. That's the general intro from my side. And now I would love to hand over to Philip from SimStation to give a little introduction. Mic. Boom. Sorry.
It's totally fine. You can come as close as you like.
No. Just fix it here.
Yep, that's fine.
Are you using this laptop?
I'm not using the laptop. I don't need it. Thank you. The mic is working?
Mic is working? Awesome.
Perfect. Okay, so hello guys. Hello everyone. I'm Philip. I'm the head of product at SimStation, main sponsor today. Very happy to be here. And these days I'm basically responsible for everything product related. So essentially where we're taking our product and what our product is all about. But I actually started at SimStation as a front-end developer myself. So I led SimStation, the front-end team afterwards. And the connection to today's talk of Yannick, which is kind of funny, is my first big major task was actually migrating AngularJS to Angular 2+. And I think you are all aware that that is quite a hassle. So I have my own fair share of technical debt already. That took more than 3 years, so it was quite a hassle. But before we get into the technical details of technical debt, a few words about SimStation. So what do we do? SimStation started out fairly easy with the idea to make recordings, audio and visually, available. And afterwards a debriefing, especially in the medical field. So the main reason for SimStation was actually founded with an idea of AKH, of the hospital in Vienna here, where they needed a product to be able to record simulation scenarios and then afterwards debrief them. So that's the basic idea of SimStation. And then over the years, so SimStation is around now for over 10 years now. So it's quite of a big product now, so it evolved over the years. It's evolved to a platform which not only has the recording audiovisual part, but more the whole platform behind it. So being able to schedule simulations to do your assessments, they are called OSCEs in the medical environment. where they actually do assessments for all of the students, where they have different stations rotating. So you can imagine that all of these modules evolved in a very big software monolith. So we do have, and you're grinning already, Yannick, I think you know that already, that we do have a lot of modules which evolved in a big software suite. And we are trying to really tackle the technical debt. And I think Yannick has a lot to tell you about this story. Which brings me to my end for today. So on behalf of SimStation, I wish you a very nice Angular meetup. Thank you for inviting us. Thank you for setting everything up. And with that, I give it to Yannick. Take it away. The stage is yours.
So, hi everyone, I'm Yannick. It's very nice to meet you. It's going to be my very first talk. And as I found out today, I am a little terrified of public speaking. So just like with dogs, it's okay. I'm more scared of you than you are of me. And then another thing why I really wanted to have a double screen setup is because I reshuffled my slides, and so I might just lose track of where it is where, but it's okay. We're going to get through it together. So, as Philip briefed you on it, there is a lot to technical debt, and we also had, thankfully, closer to past tense than present, a lot of it. And so it's difficult to discuss any particular thing, or rather the big picture item, and condense it into half an hour. So what I have specifically done is I have selected one particular horror story from my experience with dealing with technical debt. And that is something that I'm going to tell you in form specifically of a story. So I'd like you to turn your imagination for just a second with me and imagine that you're a young sailor, seaworthy, proven, but still very ambitious, and you've just been placed as the helmsman of HMS Frontend. A schooner in Her Majesty's service of specifically the whaling fleet. And you've just been approached by the admiral to go hunt for your very first whale. Before we get into the very confusing bits about this metaphor, that is specifically just a very large feature that we have in our application. The admiral could be literally anyone, but let's say for the sake of argument, it's a handsome devil named Philip. So, you set out hunting, and you hear the rumblings of a whale among the sailors gossips of particular sightings, perhaps it was a fair bit of jQuery located in just one method in the entire application, nowhere else. Or some functions which take any as a parameter and of course return any as well, because why not? There was specifically something that I wanted to show you here as well. It was an outcropping which was very difficult to get as a screenshot to show during a presentation, but imagine a function with nested switch cases that is running on every single render cycle. That is the level of code that we're talking about. So here she is. That is our white whale. She is a large page that has many children and very, very high levels of complexity. She's 10 plus years old, specifically because she's the core value proposition of the product. So it has a massive user base. This is specifically the reason why people pay us money. High risk. We're talking about over 1,700 lines of code split between the component and an abstract class that it extends. You might then surmise that we clearly have a division between the view state and the view logic where it lives in the component and the model that lives in our abstract class. Nothing could be further from the truth. All of it is just randomly placed wherever. Then she has a little bit of a hankering for Italian food because she is chock full of spaghetti. As an example, for instance, the primary function that she has is 167 lines of code. Maximum nesting depth of 8, but she does maintain a steady 6 most of the time. High cyclomatic and cognitive complexity, of course, because how else? DOM manipulation, I'm so glad that you asked. It's there. And comments, any form of documentation, they're here, but they are explicitly in German. Wait a second, I have a strong feeling that this is about my battery settings right now. Yeah, that seems right. Okay, so we met our whale, which means that this is the perfect time to start mixing metaphors, is it not? Who doesn't like a little bit of confusion? Are you familiar with this picture? For anyone who remembers from Grundschule, from grade school, this is a picture from The Little Prince, and it is not a picture of a hat. It's the picture of a snake eating an elephant. In our case, let's imagine that it's a whale. So as we can see already, the snake has made one very crucial mistake, is that it's eating the entire thing in one go. We can't judge the snake very much. It's not a very good engineer because you see it doesn't have opposable thumbs. But we are, I would hope, good engineers. And so we know that we really shouldn't be eating our whale in one go. We should be cutting it up into pieces. And so the very first step that I would say in handling, and at this point in time, I'm actually going to drop the metaphor a little bit because it's just going to get confusing. The first thing in handling large code base with a large amount of technical debt, I would say, is specifically the fact that this is a team sport, much like whale hunting, and you're not going to be doing this alone. And so we should really start by defining our team tactics. Coding guidelines, testing guidelines. This is, remember this sentence, we're going to come back to it relatively soon, and the way that we are structuring our workflow. And don't worry, also, we are going to go a little bit deeper into those points as well. This I'm going to skim over because I don't want to get a little bit, to get overly philosophical. But something that I'm pushing for very hard, and my junior is sitting over here, and I'm pretty sure that he knows that I'm being a little anal with pull requests when it comes specifically to enforcing these values. But it's simplicity, legibility, uniformity, readability, and predictability. Effectively, the things that I value the most in clean code. You might think legibility is a little bit redundant because it's implied by everything else, and you would be correct. I just really wanted it to say slurp. The idea behind it is basically to keep the cognitive load to a minimum. and let yourself parse every piece of code that you encounter with ease, so that you really don't have to think, you just see and you know. So, now that we have established our ground rules, let's take a look at our prey, our imperative monolith. First thing that we're going to do, same as with everything else, is we're of course going to take a look at the code that we're working with. But importantly, I would argue, so as I set out in the description of the talk, this is going to be about the do's and the don'ts, and I'm going to be predominantly talking about the do's, but rest assured, for every single rule that I'm talking about, the more I argue for it, the more I can tell you I have broken it and it came to bite me back in the ass. So the thing that I would start out with is really analyzing the code in a relatively simple fashion. Effectively kind of just skimming through it, getting a relatively good idea of, hey, what is this entire big picture thing, but not going too depth into it. Why? Because the next thing that if I could go back in time and fix my own choices, what I would go and look for is someone who is very well versed with the functionality. So when we're talking about a 10-year-old monolith, there's going to be usually some tribal knowledge that is lost in time. We're not going to have actual documentation to work with. That is, at least has been my experience. But we do have something else. And that is frequently people, often non-technical people that live or that work in our company that can help us out a lot. And usually if you're working in a specifically software-centered company, that's going to be your product owner. But for instance, in our case, there would frequently be people working in sales, people who show the functionality on a daily basis to our clients. Why are we going to be doing that? Number one, of course, we want to educate ourselves on the business logic that we are working with, understand the functionality. And the next step would be to document it. But before anyone gets their pitchforks, I'm not talking about uploading technical documentation to Confluence. Of course not. I'm talking about creating an interim documentation that effectively kind of just lets us define our test cases. And here's the sentence coming back. Given condition A, when condition B, then outcome. This is something that we have defined in our test cases, and what we have arrived on in our push to integrate more and more testing into the software, increasing the testing coverage, which has been a massive change in the amount of quality assurance that we can do on an automatized basis, is that AI specifically, and of course I have to name drop it at some point, is really, really good at writing unit tests. Things that are boilerplate and really annoying for us to write, but it gets away with doing it exceptionally fast. But the one thing that it struggles with is knowing what exactly to test. And that's what we're doing right now. We're just defining a list of sentences, really simple ones. Hey, when, for instance, this scenario has been loaded and this user clicks on a particular button, then we expect a particular outcome in it. And the AI is really, really good at writing those test cases for us then. Now, before we get into specifics of the testing and why I really, really push for it before we start any form of refactoring, a quick sidebar on API and component API structure. This is how we defined it in our coding guidelines and how I like to think about it. I mean, private, of course, is very self-explanatory, right? It's just the component internals. Public, equally self-explanatory, is the members of the class that are exposed for architectural components, so components and services to use programmatically outside of the component that we live in. But the thing that I found very interesting is we have agreed on using protected specifically as an access modifier for everything that is getting called specifically and only from, or at the very least from, our templates. And that helps us massively when reading the code and trying to parse everything, which is specifically, it is suggestive of user interaction. Why is that important for us right now? Well, because we're going to be doing our testing. And what I would like to focus on in the testing is exactly the things that we have gotten as information from our business logic expert. And that is the way that the users interact with this logic, right? And so that means, yeah, we started with our documented functional requirements. We have defined test cases for our should be actually protected API, but of course public is going to be included as well. Why are we going to limit ourselves to this? Number one, there's a lot of code to test. And we are not going to be sitting there for weeks and weeks writing all the test cases. We want it to be specifically localized to the things that really matter for us. And then we're going to be testing exactly the user interaction. So things that are the most important for our value proposition and the things that we found out the most information on. And of course, keep it simple, stupid, we're on the clock. And like I said before, we have done the human part, the AI can do the busy boilerplate work for us. Now, at this point in time, we are familiar with our business logic, we have our testing setup, which means that we can now get to the actual meat and potatoes, the refactoring, the fun bit. But I wouldn't start with anything large just yet. The one thing that I would definitely start taking a look at first, and this is even something that you could do before you start running your test cases to really get a better view of what is protected on public API, is specifically refactoring just the low-hanging fruit, the minimum risk, things that we are certain we're not going to fuck up anything when we touch. And so, if we have something like this cryptic method where, oh, it takes 2 arguments, but we have no idea what kind of a return type is, we don't actually even know what the arguments are, we have no idea what the access modifier is, what do we have to do? We have to read the goddamn code that lives inside of it, which is no bueno, because then we have to put our mental energy, the cognitive load, into actually understanding something, and there is a limited amount of energy and intelligence in this skull. And so I would like to not have to do that. Now, not sacrificing a goat to the linter plays into the obsession part of the Moby Dick metaphor that I'm talking about. I don't know about you, but I feel like linters really gamify refactoring for me, and I love to see how the lint is running away. That is tempting you to make functional changes. Don't do that. Do only low risk at this point. Here is something that I would like to see at this stage of refactoring. This is a method signature that tells me exactly everything I need to know without having to read the code. I see that it's protected, which means that it's maybe used privately and from the internals, but it's definitely going to be using from the template. I have a pretty good naming convention. For instance, I really like to see that there are verbs in the naming convention of methods because they are indicative of behavior. We have our arguments, which are typed, and we have our return type as well. And better yet, this is something that I find absolutely astonishing nowadays, is that when you just click, put your cursor over here, and then see Copilot just write this entire fucking block for you, and all you have to do is press tab and then maybe do a little bit of editorializing because it's a little bit too verbose in writing this documentation. But then, at this point, you really don't need to read what is happening in here unless you specifically, well, need to get into the nitty-gritty of the behavior. But when your eyes are just scanning over the code, you instantly know what is where and why. So, when we're doing this kind of refactoring, I told you at the very beginning, just do the minimum analysis. Really get to the next part as fast as possible. This is the moment where I would say go in really deep and actually take a look at what is the blast radius. In our case, it's going to be the entire page, so we know for sure that basically every single child is a downstream dependency, quote unquote, that is going to be affected by what we're doing. And identify what is the model and what is the view state. This is also something that we're going to circle back to a little bit further. And then, just as we did before, document your findings as method documentation and comments. You can get very verbose in this situation because the idea is anyways to do that refactoring. We're going to be rewriting the code so that we don't need those noisy comments, but right now they are actually helpful for us. And then keep an eye out for redundancy, especially right now in behavior. But do not get tempted to introduce abstraction at this point. I've done that many times. Every single time, I might as well just have shot myself in the foot. So, checkpoint time. What have we gotten to thus far? Well, we have educated ourselves on functionality, right? We have defined our test cases, which means that now we have test coverage on the problematic part of the code that we are working for. We have performed refactoring to make it look just a little bit more presentable and readable. And we have done our analysis where we have actually done the estimation of, hey, how risky is this going to be to work with? So what do we do now? Ideas? Honestly, usually at this point in time, I would say, leave it fucking be. Seriously, don't attack it any further, because at this point in time, you have expended your time as a developer, and your time is an expensive resource. I don't know if you guys checked lately, but more likely than not, probably all of us developers here in the room, we're in the top 20% of earners in Austria. Our time is really goddamn expensive. Then scope and requirements change over time, because we have been treating this as though we were living in a vacuum up until right now, but that is really not the case, because you have other things to work on, other features, things that you need to implement in order to sell more units to your clients, right? And you have to be, and I hate saying this because I always was annoyed reading the Agile Manifesto as a student, but you also have to be able to react to those changing conditions with agility, right? And last but not least, you might have failed the bus test, but your code really shouldn't. So if you want to be morbid, if you get ridden over by a bus, but if you want to be a little bit less morbid, you have a nice holiday. Someone should be able to be in a situation where can they really just pick up from where you left off, right? We don't want to be indispensable, as it were. But let's say that we have gone through all of this, and we have arrived at the point where, you know what, fudge it, we're going to attack it anyways. In my humble opinion, the bit that I have found always to be the most difficult and complex part wasn't the behavior itself, but rather the state and how we represent it. I watched a video essay relatively recently, probably also by a YouTuber that you guys are familiar with, and he had a very interesting metaphor specifically about Picasso's bowl. He made the series of drawings where he was reducing the bowl bit by bit into what is the most essential thing that our brains still recognize as being a picture of a bull. And I think that this is a very, very apt metaphor. We want to keep our state to an absolute minimum, to make it extremely self-explanatory. And generally speaking, if we do all of these mental exercises to get to this point, we're also going to have a significantly better mental model of not only the state, but also the logic that interacts with it. And aside from that, model, of course, should be our only source of truth. In the process of getting to this, getting to the most minimum representation of states that we can work with, I would say don't rely on your instincts. At the very least, they have failed me. I don't know, maybe some older, more experienced developers can rely on them more. But what I have found is, I'll jump back again to AI, my apologies, is not necessarily to just say, give me the most minified version of this state possible, because again, this is a little bit complex for AI to work with. But rather, be my Socratic rubber ducky. Ask me questions, try to suggest what might be issues, what are the trade-offs or SWOT analyses of my ideas, help me think for myself, rather than give me the final output on a platter. Now, addressing this specifically, I'm sure that this is going to invite some amount of debate. My personal favorite weapon of choice is the NGRX signal store. Is it the optimal way of dealing with state management? No, it's just what I like. Like, I understand that there's reducer pattern-based solutions. There's a lot of other options that people were like working with. This is just the thing that I like working with, and I can tell you more or less kind of why, right? So, especially when thinking about the monolith that I'm talking to you guys about, what happened quite a bit is that we would have state living inside of our main component, and then we would just be pushing it as though with a wheelbarrow downstream to all the children, and then expecting children to be reading interactions with the users, like just simple event bindings. And so we would basically just have a situation where the state is being pushed down through, as though prop drilling in React, and then we would be bubbling all of those events through event emitters back to the parent from the innermost child, the one where the event was being read. I like to call it IO drilling. I have no idea if that is the actual term. But this, of course, like as every single state management solution, solves that issue for us because we are talking to a separate entity that doesn't live inside of the flow of our tree. It enforces a particular structure. So I don't know if you guys read Uncle Bob's Clean Architecture, but there is a chapter where he's discussing specifically the go-to statements or jump-to statements. I don't remember exactly, that was before my time. But the one very interesting take that he had about them is that introducing limitations, taking away some of the freedom that we have is actually really good for us. Because, well, yeah, working with a structure can substantiate it better. It's just structured, right? We want our work to be structured. What I like specifically, though, about Signal Store, and the previous point is a little bit closer to why I like it. I like working with it better than just having a service that does it for us, because services are pretty free form, is that everything inside of or most everything inside of a Signal Store is just going to be a signal. So we can really just go absolutely, well, I'm not going to say the thing, but neck deep into working with signals and relying to have our mental model to be specifically signals. And another thing that I'm going to show are structural regions. So the anatomy of a signal store is we have our core imperative state, right? This is usually where we're going to be putting our model, or at the very least, let's say if we have our harpoon store where we're going to be setting up for our whale hunt, then probably when we're navigating to that page, we're going to be reading the whale ID from the URL and then passing it. Let's imagine that there's an initiation function. We're going to be setting it, and then, ooh, I already know what to do with it. I have a resource that is going to fetch this particular whale for me using the whale ID. Then we have our props region. This is service injections. I like to put forms. I like to put effects in it as well, which I know is a little bit debatable, but still. And for instance, resources, things that don't really necessarily neatly fit anywhere else in the signal store. Then of course we have our with methods, which is where the behavior lives in a really self-explanatory way, and with hooks, where we have access to, I believe, only 2 lifecycle hooks, on init and on destroy. The neat part about it is, the thing that I definitely like about it more than Redux-based solutions, is that everything that I receive from it is going to be signal by default. Then, another API sidebar, as I was talking about how we like to structure our API, I think that this is another kind of neat feature of it, is that you're not going to have, that you can structurally enforce which part of the API is public and which part of the API is private, not necessarily, sadly, through keywords, right? But number one is that you can use this indicator similar to the native private indicator from JavaScript, the hashtag, and this means that the signal store is going to immediately know, hey, this is a private method. I'm not going to be showing this to any of my consumers. But what else you can do is, well, this is just a callback, right? And so whatever we want to return from it has to be returned from the block.
So if we have our private method and we don't want to expose it to our consumers, we just don't put it in the block. Presto. And that's it. Also, yeah, harkening back to the testing discussion, very much recommend doing basically the same thing with the signal store as with our components. Just have even an AI-generated unit test file where all you tell it is like, hey, look, I have my unit testing guidelines already set up in this repository. I have the list of my public API, and you can structurally tell what it is. Just make sure that those are tested. And of course, review the code yourself afterwards, right? Good. Then this might be a little bit reductive, but who doesn't love a reductive hyperbole? I assume that everyone here as a passionate Angular developer is relatively familiar with signals, right? No? No? Just show of hands of someone who feels very comfortable with signals. Okay, great. Cool. So, again, a little bit more high concept and philosophical, but when we're working with older Angular code, imperative Angular code, quasi-imperative, we're thinking about a set of instructions, right? We're giving an instruction to go specifically set step by step, hey, this is happening here, and so therefore update this piece of state just because I told you to in this line-by-line set of instructions. When we're thinking about this more declarative approach, what we should be instead thinking about is that we are not really giving it instructions. We're giving it a set of rules to follow, declaring a set of rules for it to follow. And so derivative state, which is usually going to be, for instance, our view state, right? Whether we want to show a loader or not. This is going to be effectively just, hey, I am giving you a rule wherein, right, this is a function of my core state. The dependencies in this case are the is loading signals that live within our resources. And so whenever our whale resource is loading or our weather resource is loading, we're going to recompute is loading. You never have to keep track of it yourself. You basically just tell it, hey, this is the rule. Whenever we're looking for our whale or our weather, we just want to show the is loading bar. Now, that's the computed, and the computed you cannot set with a setter. Then there is a slightly different flavor for derivative state, which is quite neat, and that is linked state. What linked state does is effectively it gives us two options to work with itself. We give it a callback for a computation, and whenever it recognizes that, hey, there is a signal in here, I should probably recompute whenever that is the case, whenever the value of it changes. But we also have a slightly different option, which is to just use a setter on it. So if we, for instance, have a harpoon that is preferred for a certain type of whale, thank you very, very much. So if we have a harpoon that is preferred for a certain type of whale, let's say, so we have whales that potentially hold a preferred harpoon for it, if we know which harpoon is preferred for hunting it. Then we can default to the usual type of harpoon, the one that we use most often, barbed. That was a fun Google search, by the way. But then at any point in time, we could say, for instance, that we want the user to be able to choose their weapon if they'd like. And so with that, all we have to do is actually just call the setter on the harpoon signal, and we can just update that. What's going to happen, though, is that if at any point in time we're going to change the whale, like as we had before changing the ID and our resource refetching a new whale, it's then going to trigger this callback again and check, hey, do I have a preferred harpoon? If so, then use this one, and if not, then default to the barbed. Yeah, for dealing with the computations, there is a very, very neat trick that an older colleague of mine has showed me that I'm absolutely in love with, which is kind of just pulling in a little bit more of functional programming into the mix. which is dealing with pure functions. So in this instance, let's say we have a slightly more nuanced choice of our harpoon, and there's going to be a little bit more logic. Well, we just discussed that one of our core values with this is readability and simplicity. And so it would be a little bit annoying if we had to put a larger function in here. Rest assured, there is a much better way to do it, and that is to kick the function that does the computation, completely out of the context of our store. Better, this can be done, by the way, with basically any signal, everything that I'm talking about, right? For improved structure, I like to put these even in util functions to basically limit just the amount of lines that we have in our stores. But effectively, what we're doing right now is that because this does not exist within the context of the store, that means that it cannot possibly physically have any side effects. It cannot interact with something that it's not meant to interact with. And secondly, given the same input, it's always going to have the same output. The two criteria that make it a pure function. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's issues with it. There's always issues with things. Number one is you can do the same thing as you do with all other types of signals. You can overuse effects. You can just say, hey, I have a signal and I would like to do some mutations on it. So how about I put those mutations in an effect? Whenever something changes, I want this signal's value to be updated. Congratulations, you have now reinvented imperative programming. Then linked state also has a particular issue, one that I'm sure you as very, very astute observers have noticed before, right? What happens if I'm setting something and might be a reference here to something that is set via an API call that would basically make it potentially vulnerable to a race condition if there is an async interaction to it. And in fact it is, and I can tell you this is really fucking annoying to debug. Then, generally speaking, what I found when I started preparing or declaring declarative signal stores, yes, great usage of words, is that it makes it a lot easier for us to create significantly more state. Because we don't really have to juggle the mental gymnastics of keeping track of that state imperatively ourselves. We're just telling it, hey, whenever there's something, whenever one of the dependencies change, just give me something new. And then before you notice what's going on, you have your API model. Then you process the data and you have a normalized model. Then you flatten the state because somewhere you need to use those members of the object, maybe as a collection. Then you're going to localize it into other components. Then let's say the consumer A consumer A being, let's say, component A, has its own view state, it has its own wrapper, we're going to build it, it's really easy for us to do. Why not create a separate piece of state for it? And then consumer B needs a slightly different wrapper with slightly different pieces of state, but all of that is going to be computed from the same thing, so it's fine, it's okay. And then before you realize you're building yourself another white whale because you weren't listening to Picasso. Yeah. Then back to these, done with coding, back to the high concept things. Dealing with accountability. This is something that I would say, especially the more senior we become, the easier it is to deal with the complexities of code. And for me, at the very least, frequently the issue when working with these large-scale reworks and handling very intricate and difficult technical debt wasn't even the fact that, hey, I have no idea how to code this. It's the reason why I chose Moby Dick as the main metaphor and reference is because you just get obsessed. You start seeing this as a personal challenge, something that goes against your pride and you need to finish it and you start putting in overtime. But then at the end of the day, somebody just taps you on the shoulder and goes like,
how about the other tasks that you had to work on? Maybe those should be prioritized as well. And you realize that you are now well and truly fucked because you have a 6,000 line pull request that is not really finished, but you really have to start working on something else. And so frequent pull requests every single time. As soon as we get to a point where this can be merged into an epic branch, we do it, and we do it without a second's delay. So if we would go through again the steps that we had taken before. That would be us documenting the functional requirements as test cases. Maybe for that one, if we're doing it with the AI, we can basically say like, hey, look, this is my description. I want you to do that. Then it generates it. We review it ourselves. We check the code coverage locally. By the way, for that, I recommend using ng test running the entire time in headless mode to just constantly have the information and reports on the regression that you are inevitably introducing into your code base. That is a pull request. The low-hanging fruit refactoring, that is a pull request. If there is any way that you can cut up a section of the task that you are working on and separate it into a separate ticket, into a separate pull request, do it for the love of God, for the love of yourself, and just for the love of going home early. Then another thing is, as annoying as it seems, you do want to have oversight. You want to report to the people who get to decide which tasks go into the sprint, because you want to keep good rapport with them, because again, this is something that is like, your time is expensive. You're an expensive resource. And they need to be able to plan around how far you're getting along with this. And the more honest you are with them about it, the better. Come on. Okay. Yeah, and dividing work into sprints, basically kind of just like a slightly more high-level version of what I was talking about. Keep yourself honest, including to yourself. If this right now needs to be put on the back burner and you need to focus on something else, put your pride back in your pocket. It's okay, you've already done a lot of great work. Just do something else. Also, give yourself the moment of a small win, of a bug fix every now and again, or something just to clean your palate. Yeah, going back to the metaphor, don't let your obsession jeopardize the safety of your crew. Yeah, so that is us basically coming to an end. As a short summary of what we've learned today, I don't know, maybe, hopefully, familiarize yourself with the business logic. Really understand what it is you're dealing with. You're not going to be able to test it, like smoke test it or manual test it very well yourself. At least I don't. Maybe it's just because I'm not great with testing. But automatize that and internalize what you know about it, and then you can also just externalize it into documentation that lives inside of the code until the code is written clean enough that it is self-evident. Analyze the impact and be honest with yourself about how big of a risk and how big of an undertaking it is to try this rework. Start with low-risk refactoring. Just make it as clean as you can without touching the functionality in any way whatsoever. Continuously test against regression, continuously. Best case scenario, of course, if it is integrated in the pipeline. But what I found to be very useful as well is that I genuinely just run the test cases, the testing suite locally on my machine, and just like a headless mode so that Chromium doesn't eat all the possible resources, because we are living in a RAM recession, but still. But get constant feedback on what are the things that you're fucking up, because you are inevitably fucking up something. And it's the classic case of like, ooh, my dinner table is wobbly. Let me put a book in underneath there. And then you turn around and the fridge is on fire. Exactly the case. Divide and conquer. Divide your plan into small, self-contained, logical steps. Try to be your own PO, or genuinely do ask PO for help to build smaller tasks that are easier to digest and let you pull requests more frequently. Yeah, that one. And yes, that one. Work agile and enforce accountability in yourself.
Minify state, like with Picasso's ball. And this is something that I had wanted to include in the talk. There's some cut content, shall we say. But yeah, one of the things that I would definitely recommend is if you see redundancy, don't rush into an abstraction. I know that it's exciting, like this is the things that we really live for, is designing some cool solutions, but sit with the redundancy, look at it, get comfortable with it, lick it if you have to, but don't try to solve it first things first. Really let it exist, and then when other things are really well wired and you're looking at it and it seems to you that this is, you found a mess of cables and you left it everything in beautiful cable management, that is the time to introduce fancy abstraction. That is the time when you treat yourself with a cherry on top. And then you turn on TypeScript strict mode and everything goes to shit anyways. Okay, that's the end.
Thank you, Jan, for the great talk. Do you guys have any questions? There you go.
Thank you very much for the vivid talk. I really enjoyed the metaphors and the storytelling. Could you maybe elaborate more on the motivation of the refactoring, or like what were the specific challenges? Why was it necessary? What was the state before, and what was the goal? What was the main objective for the refactoring?
Do you want the honest answer?
Yes, please.
I'm a masochist. Like there really wasn't that big of a functional reason. There was basically like, maybe I could go and look in the slides. There was in a bit of the content. I did a slide on Powerpuff Girls. I was really excited about that one, but I couldn't really include it. Basically, the explanation is that we have this feature not just once, but 3 times. And all of it is completely redundant, like they share no logic in the sense that they are based on the same logic, but it's just copy pasted, right? And I wanted, like, I could see in my future at some point in time, the moment when I get approached and they're telling me like, you have to modify this, you have to extend it with an initial functionality. And at that point, the best I'm gonna say is like, ciao, I'm out. And so I wanted to get ahead of that. And another thing was just kind of like, it seemed like a cool thing to do.
Okay, so main goal was maybe unification of 3 different code blocks or like functions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I don't deserve a Raffle ticket for this. It's all good. Thanks.
Anyone else? Here you go.
Hey, thanks. First of all, I would really like to appreciate you mentioned that this thing can become an obsession. I think I'm in the same situation in my project that's been running for 8+ years. And my question is kind of follow up on a previous question. How did you convince management and your POs that they should spend the money on this? Because that's what I'm struggling with the most.
Yeah, so at the very beginning, I didn't. I just started working on it whenever I had the time, and it turned out not to be a good idea. Would you look at that? But then eventually, I mean, it kind of just comes down to the work culture that you have, a little bit to the reputation that you have as a developer, right? A little bit to the management structure. Like I would say there's a lot of things going on. But one of the things that, it wasn't specifically connected to this, but I would say, and this isn't like me glazing the company, we are blessed with people who are in management who actually like do care and do think. And so when I approached one of our C-level higher-ups at some point in time regarding something different, but it was a similar case where I wanted to get ahead of the potential issues that I could see already happening up front and just tell them, look, like, long term, we would be saving on maintenance doing this. We would be, because like, as it is, if you're just being honest, especially if this is not code that you've written yourself, and you're not going to be throwing yourself under the bus, you can just go like, it's shit, and we really can't maintain it very well. And so this is the best way, if there is any planned modifications or extensions to this feature, this is the best way for us to get ahead of just massive potential issues in the future.
Next question.
Thanks for your talk. I really appreciate it. I'm in a very similar situation right now, like rewriting code, Angular code written by Java developers, which is another story. And I just wanted to ask you, would you recommend NGRX? Because we don't have it, we don't work with it. Why NGRX? A few more words about that?
So there's a couple of flavors of NGRX. There is like I think it's a reducer-based, please correct me if I'm wrong, but a reducer-based implementation of NGRX. And my limited research with it was basically like the same issue as with all reducer pattern-based state management solutions, which is just boilerplate upon boilerplate upon boilerplate. That's why we chose Signal Store, also because like we had like a massive internal push for signals. We like me and the other senior were just super duper excited about them. We wanted them in our code base as much as possible. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I mean, I haven't worked with other state management libraries in Angular specifically, but I remember reducer-based ones from a React past, and I wasn't a huge fan of them. This one, I have to admit, I'm actually very happy with.
Okay. Was it difficult to learn it, to implement it?
It's thinking in signals. So if you can think in signals, you're good, basically. It has some of its own complexity, sure, but it's kind of just like, you know, like with Tailwind, if you know CSS, you kind of know Tailwind, you just have to get used to the idiosyncrasies. Yeah.
Any more questions? Here you go.
Seems that you have like you used a lot of help of AI, and if you think about doing it without AI, would be possible, and like how much help, because analyzing of the logics and writing tests.
Come again, sorry, could you speak up a little bit because I can't hear you much.
It's just okay, so I mean like it looks like without AI it would be very hard to do the refactor without help of AI, without this testing, writing automatic tests, understanding the logics, writing comments. So would you do it without help of AI? Because I did it some of times. It's like I'm not sure it's worth it.
I've done it without AI, but I've done it without AI also before I became senior, and I just didn't know any better. That is already like a big part of the answer. Nowadays, likely, probably not really. One of the things, because like the reason, one of the biggest reasons for me personally why would be just specifically the regression, because you're just I don't remember, there's a game like the mole hunt where you just like you kill one and there's another one popping up. It's like that constantly. And the amount of work that you have to put into writing all of those unit cases yourself, or other than like you just define the descriptions of the test cases, you press a button and they're there. It's a massive workload. And so, yeah, I would probably tend towards nah. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else?
You said something about don't follow your intuition, experiment. I do it the other way around, or feel it the other way around it, about it. You experiment and do prototyping to build an intuition, to be able to implement it in an ordered way afterwards. And my question would be, because you talked a lot about the documentation at the first step and just code structure at the beginning, how much is prototyping part of this? Not necessarily in product, but you take some specific page, dashboard, whatever, and prototype independently from the whole shebang that you have around it usually.
That is a very good point. If I could go back in time and rewrite this presentation, I would include it. No, so number one, yeah, I think that you also formulated the idea behind the relationship between experimentation and intuition a lot better than I did. Admittedly, this was also something that was one of the mistakes that I didn't do, is that I didn't prototype enough, just like from the outside. If I were to start it again, I would probably go for 3 prototypes where I get to, as fast as possible, to like medium level of complexity, then have a discussion with one of our like backend architects who's just like a very smart dude, and try to together kind of just choose the best one based on the trade-offs. Does that answer your question?
Do you have more questions? No? Then big applause for Jan. So, then 30 minutes breaks until the next talk. Enjoy some snacks and beer. Thank you, everyone.
Hello everyone. Thanks for joining us at the meeting. And before I continue, I would like to make some noise and provide better context for our agents and so on. And this point of view also shares the Angular core team. And if you take a look at the roadmap of Angular, you can see that top priority is AI experience for developers. So this is the top goal of Angular team, as long as Angular developer experience, which I think goes together with the first goal. So today we will take a look at a couple of aspects of where Angular already today can bring us some tools or like things that could significantly improve the output of generated code by our agents. So we will talk about the context, about tools, about agent skills, how to measure the quality of the generated code, and we will see how to make our apps a bit AI friendly. And if you don't know where to start, if you're just starting your journey with AI and Angular, the best, I think, command would be like this. Just start here, run this command, and generate AI config, and choose the tool you use. I personally prefer Claude, but yeah, you can use Codex, whatever. And this command, it will generate a couple of things for you. The first thing it will generate for you the agents.md file. And I'm pretty sure every one of you knows, yeah, agents.md file, this is the file that agents immediately pull into a context. And here, Angular team already prepared for you the set of TypeScript best practices, Angular best practices. So basically, it's like squeezed or distilled Angular style guide that was recently updated. And yeah, it's just a compact version that you can already copy paste and use. If you use, by the way, Claude Code, like I do, you have to create ClodeMD file because Claude is a very special tool. Yeah, they want to be very unique, and they don't want just to use agents like other harnesses do, but they need a special ClodeMD. But they support such a directive like @, and then you point the name of file, and you can think of it like import. Yeah, so agents.md will be imported into ClodeMD the eager way, so immediately. What I also do, this is what automatically generated, but in reality, what I do, I extract those best practices into a separate file and place them somewhere under the docs folder or something like that. And I simply instruct agent in ClodeMD, for example, that, okay, before writing or editing TS or HTML files, read and link to the best practices file. It has one benefit that I find pretty useful. It enables so-called progressive disclosure for the agent. It means that the best practices will not be loaded automatically, eagerly into a context, but it's up to the agent when to load it. So your context will not be loaded immediately, but it will be, the best practices will be pulled only when agent has to work with the particular files. One caveat, it's not like you cannot predict always how the agent's decision, so sometimes it skips that, but you have to instruct them like very explicit that they have to read this file at particular moment. The next, by the way, yeah, you can use also rules if you use Claude Code. This is the feature I discovered recently. I don't know how new it is. Maybe some of you know, but I discovered it just a week ago or so. This is the simple folder under the Claude folder called rules. And by default, files or MD files, instructions placed under the rules, they will be like loaded automatically to the context like ClodeMD file with the same priority, but it has one advantage or feature, let's say. It's a path. You can define type of files, and when agent reads these files, only then this rule will be loaded. So if you have a big monorepo, for example, and you want to somehow improve or destructure your context and make it more like on-demand loaded, this is one of the features you can consider for your workflow. Yeah, just a tip. All right, so we talked about context a little bit. Yeah, few keywords. Unlike Claude MD file rules, they after the compact. So if you squeeze the context window, if you call the compact command, they will not be reinjected. They will be reinjected when after the compact, when you prompt something and agent again reads files, only then they will be reinjected. And also rules, they are loaded when Claude reads the file and not during the file creation, which means that it's not always these rules might be loaded if you, for example, ask Claude to create Angular component in particular folder. It will go and simply create, and it doesn't read the file. And at this point, the Angular best practices MD will not be loaded. So this is something to consider. Yeah, it's one tricky moment. The next stop is MCP. Is there anyone who doesn't know what is MCP? Okay, everyone pretty much know what is that. And Angular team provides Angular CLI MCP. That brings certain tools that our agents can use. The setup is very straightforward. It's just .mcp JSON file with the following setup that likely will be generated by the command you saw before. And it brings a few tools that you might find useful. For example, we have dev server start, dev server stop that helps agent to manipulate this this type of work. It can fetch best practices for you. It can list projects, or I find pretty useful on push zoneless migration. This is the tool that you can run and benefit from some automations AI provides during the zoneless migration. And the usage of MCP server is like pretty straightforward because you have to do basically nothing. You just activate it, and the tools will be invoked by agent itself. And it looks like this. I just recorded a very simple demo where I just prompt migrate the application. It's one of the old applications that's powered by Zone. And I asked to migrate to zoneless. I didn't provide nothing, no instructions, nothing, just migrate to zoneless. And agent started to analyze my database, the code base. It asks permission to call list projects tool. And once it figures out which project to migrate, which projects I have, it also asks if it can use on push zoneless migration. And I just, approve it. And then agent using this MCP tool performs the migration. And it just not just switch to zoneless, it also enables on push change detection strategy for all your components, which is essential and the first step that you have to do before switching to zoneless, because otherwise you might have problems with that. And these all instructions are in that tool, and you don't have to define them on your own. Agent supposed to do everything automatically. Of course, it's not perfect. It makes mistakes. It depends how fucked up the project is. Yeah, if you did everything properly, then very often even simple migration schematic can help you. But AI agent can handle more nuanced use cases. But if you completely did something strange with your Angular project, then you might have problems. Yeah, you would need to additionally debug things, but very often it really helps. Then the next stop is skills, supposed to be. If I find a way how to jump to the next slide. Yes, so skills. I'm also pretty sure everyone knows what skills, right? The hands who doesn't know what the skills, everyone knows. Great. So this is just a markdown file with instructions for our agent how to perform certain operations. And in Angular, we have also skills developed and provided and maintained by Angular core team that you can simply install in your project or globally for yourself using this simple command. You can also use a skill flag to define which exactly skill you want. And by the way, talking about which skills are available, right now we have two. We have one skill, Angular new app, which I personally have never used because I think Angular CLI is a way faster way to scaffold the new application. But another one, Angular developer skill, is is more interesting and more useful because it teaches agent a lot of stuff that agent can perform. And we can also take a look at this. I find it pretty useful if you just investigate things that you use. You can see that, yeah, this is just a skill file that instructs your agent to always analyze the project version before providing guidance, and so on, so on, so on. And then it has dedicated sections about components, data management, and forms, for example. Yeah, so some specific domains and references to different code examples that agents use. And agents, they love examples and they love to follow patterns. And this is exactly what Angular team did. And by the way, they also structured it in a way to enable this progressive disclosure. So you can see that inside a reference, we have huge amount of files, yeah, but they will not be automatically loaded to the context. They will be loaded on demand, basically. And if we go, for example, to the signal forms, you can see the example. You can see like some critical hints for the agent, and it significantly improved the quality of the code that agent eventually generate. So, yeah, that's something I wanted to say about skills. So, quick summary, skills, MCP and CloudMD, they are good foundation to start with. But of course, it needs to be extended. They are not silver bullets, and you have to adjust it to your project, to your processes, because like it should be a reflection of yourself. And by yourself, you can replace with a company, with a project, with your persona, yeah, because everything is different. We think different. We have different way of working. We have different principles that drive our final results. So it needs to be resonated with you. Yeah. So that's why I usually write my own skills. I extend them to reflect my way of thinking and not someone else, because usually it doesn't work for me. But then we come, we did first steps, and now the question how to measure the quality of the changes that we actually apply to our prompts, to our agents, MD files, and so on. And for that, Angular team built a tool called CodeGen that distributed as a regular NPM package that you can install using this simple command. And it allows you to analyze the quality of the generated code by agents. And by the way, it's not just about Angular. It is framework agnostic. You can use it with any framework. And it supports also multiple LLM models that you want to test probably and compare to each other. And now we switch to my best part of any presentation. It's a live coding where so many things can go wrong, but yeah, let's see. Especially with the agents, which is very deterministic thing. Yeah, it's sometimes not so easy. Okay, so let me mirror my screen. So, Okay. Mm. 1 second. Okay. Okay. LLM code analyzer demo. Do you see okay what is happening here? Because it seems like not so good, right? Okay, let me try to maybe switch to the light theme. Better, right? Okay, let's stay then with this theme. So I prepared some demo application. I will guide you through very quickly through the most probably important parts. So one of the folders I have here, it's a set of prompts where, for example, I have a simple prompt, develop a contact form that should include blah, blah, blah fields. And yeah, so we ask agent to develop some little thing, little application or little component, and we can have a bunch of them. Yeah, because we want to test maybe forms, we want to test some other aspects, and so on and so on. So we create such prompts first of all. Then we have something like in their terminology is called environments. Yeah, this is a different configuration in which LLM model will be working on. For example, we can define the system instructions for their particular environment. For example, I have currently no best practices environment where we don't say agent best practices about Angular and TypeScript, and it's a simple prompt that just instructs, okay, create application, generate some styling, whatsoever. Yeah, you can just then later read this simple instruction. And then we have config.js, where we describe where the project template, for example, I share the same project between multiple environments. So to keep everything in sync, I just have one source of truth, one template, one Angular application that has the same versioning and so on and so on. And yeah, then we define which system prompt has to be used. We define executable prompts. Those are actually prompts that yeah, we defined right here. So it will be in the loop generated, executed those prompts and generated corresponding applications. And we have set of ratings. And we will come back to ratings a little bit later. But this is pretty much the entire idea. Yeah? And what you have to do is to run simply the command like this, npm run eval, which actually looks like this. Yeah? We define which model has to generate thing, which model has to verify the result, because one part of the verification, it's a code review by another model, and this is the model you define. Usually you have to prefer different models for generation and review, but I did it because it requires API token, so it's paid experiment. Yeah, so that's why I didn't want to pay to Anthropic, for example, for the model, just for demo and for ChatGPT and for OpenAI. So I kept it simple. And yeah, you run this command. I will not be running it now because it will take some time for agent to generate stuff, but I will show you the result. The result will be the following. Here's the folder LLM output, and for every environment, it will generate the particular code, yeah, that will be eventually evaluated. So you can see that this is the result for Angular without best practices environment. You can see that it uses outdated code, it uses the constructor dependency injection and stuff. And if we go to app.ts or app.html, you can see the usage of the old API like ngIf, etc., etc. So pretty bad result. Same for using best practices. So this is the application that was generated with applied best practices that I defined inside these corresponding system instructions. And there I have like pretty much the same. I would say that it's copy paste, but there below I just say that strictly follow the best practices. And this is something I copied from the automatically generated agentsmd file, right? And the result is slightly different already and got better because it already uses signals. It also, if we go to HTML, it's using the modern control flow, which is cool. Now it's time to evaluate to see the scores which we got from this tool. And to do that, we have to run npm run report command. And what it does, it actually runs evaluation and shows us a simple application that looks like this. You can see our environment for no best practices and using best practices. If you go inside, you will see the system prompt that has been utilized for generating the application. It has the repair system prompt, so it's a default prompt that will be the command that will be prompted to the agent when the build is failed. Yeah, so we ask to fix it and return the correct code. And there we have already like the list of different criteria that were included into the evaluation process. Yeah, so we check if the application could be built successfully at all. We check runtime exceptions and many, many other criteria based on which ones we will get eventually the points. Yeah. And also here's actually the form that has been generated because this tool also does screenshot. Yeah, and then analyzes also the visual part, so you can ask about evaluation model to check if the design is accessible, if people see actually the form, the button, and all this stuff. Then you might be actually curious, like we applied no best practices and we got highest level of the highest score, and we got the same point with best practices. And this is the thing that you already have to customize actually, because those are like built-in criteria, the ones you can see right here. Yeah, they are built in and they are coming from, let me open. They are coming from this function, get built-in ratings. This is what we get out of the box. But we can do our own ratings. We can create those evaluation, I don't know what they are, actually objects or object with a function, and it looks like this. So it's just an object where we describe what kind of evaluation it is. It is per file or it is per build, etc., etc. Some metadata like name ID. We can define impact that this rating has on the eventual score. For example, if I see that LLM generated the outdated control flow syntax, I consider it as a high impact. You might consider it a medium impact, but it's up to you how to define that. And you also can define the score reduction. So if this rule fails, how much from there, like points have to decrease from the final result. Then important function, it's actually evaluation function called rate, where we get the code generated that we got from the output and the file path in case you need it. And we simply just take a code and try to find any substring that matches this simple regex. So if we enter something like ng switch case, ng4, ngif whatsoever, we then return object with rating 0, which indicates that we failed this check, and the error message that helps us to identify what went wrong. And so we can actually try to add those ratings to our environments and see what will happen. So I will add the control flow rating and standalone rating. Yeah, that checks that if model defined standalone true in the component decorator. Because in modern Angular we don't need it because standalone it's by default. So I add it here. I then add these ratings right there as well. And we can do re-evaluation. And for that, we have to run the same commands for like we did before, but this time, pay attention, I add this -- local flag, and this flag means that the application, the code right here, inside the output, it will not be regenerated by the model again, and we run our score against this already generated code. Yeah, it's just needed for you when you test your ratings and you don't want to spend tokens for regeneration of the application each time. So we run it for using best practices, and I think in parallel we could run the same but for no best practices environment and see how it will eventually be reflected in our scoreboard. It will take some time again because yeah, some evaluation model needs to recheck the final code. Our ratings have to be executed, so it will take some time, not so much as if we would do everything from scratch. Well, let's check. I'm still thinking. Hopefully we have internet. Yeah. Okay, maybe you have meanwhile some small questions you can ask me because let's see, it takes some time. Yeah.
So you're using LLM to generate code, right?
Yeah.
Can you use the local one?
I think so. They allow you to define your models, but wait a second. No. This model has to be supported by AI. How do they call this framework? It's AI SDK, yeah, by Vercel. So this model has to be supported by this framework because it's being used as a runner for this tool. Yeah, but you can check. They have multiple runners, and it can be extended by your custom ones. So yeah, actually, I'm not sure if it's possible with the local ones, but with the ones that supported by that framework, AI SDK, yeah, it should work. But this tool also, it's not ready yet, I think so, because after some time playing with it, I see that there are some problems sometimes appear. But in general, yeah, it's pretty much okay. So our evaluation finished, and we can rerun our scoreboard and see how things changed. And now you see already the difference that no best practices environment got a lower score. And if we open it, we will see our ratings in action. So the syntax failed modern control flow, and also the no explicit standalone flag. So our custom ratings, they already like decreased the final score for this environment. And this is how you can adjust it for yourself, for your coding standards. And you can then very easily, or like easily check how other models perform. Yeah, because you can spin it up for ask other model to generate things and compare, like, is the result is better, the output is better or worse. And same, you can test your prompts as well. So you change the prompt, you see how good the result, if the score is higher or lower. So this is something that might be also useful. All right, so let's stop this part. And now let's switch back to WebMCP demo, which, okay, I have to switch back to the slide, but okay. Let's jump straight to the point because it's another live demo. Quick questions before. Has anybody heard about WebMCP? What is that? Okay, a few people. The fact that you know what the general MCP is will help you quite a lot here. But yeah, let me once demonstrate the issue, and yeah, and everything will get way cleaner. So I will switch again to the lighter theme, and first of all, let's start the application. So for demo purposes, I created a simple online store where we sell some online courses. They are real one. Sorry for the promotion. I hate selling, but I have to do it because otherwise people don't know about this my products. So simple application, we can like interact, add to the cart, remove from the cart, and so on. So like application designed for humans first. And very often we delegate certain work to agents, right? And we do it more and more often. So let's see what will happen if we ask agent, like Claude Code, to perform this task. So I simply go there and say, hey, Claude, can you please visit this online shop and this URL and add all courses to the cart? Now let's see how it will handle it. So it will start thinking about, and I will maybe tell you if we have time what actually will happen. So it will go there, it will take a screenshot of our online store in order to understand what actually there exists, what is present there, where the buttons, where the everything, grab the corresponding coordinates for our buttons that you probably see here. Yeah, you can see it takes a screenshot, then it analyzes it. It understands where the coordinates for each of these buttons, and then it fires, it should fire somewhere. Yeah, you can see left click with the coordinates. Yeah, let's left click with particular coordinates that corresponds to a particular button. Yeah, and it works actually. And if we go to the browser that Claude has to spin up somewhere, yeah, here it is. You can see all three courses have been added. So agent could manage this task. Not ideally, it did a lot of things under the hood, but still, yeah, the task is done. But now let's go and change our prompt a little bit. Where's my Claude? Aha, here we go. So let's edit it and say add all bestseller courses to the cart. We changed one simple word, and now things got not so obvious for the agent because we don't have any label there that identifies what the bestseller course is. And we force agent to interpretate the information available on the front end and take decision on its own what is the bestseller course. But this is not enough to make this decision because a lot of information is a backend thing probably, or agents don't know what criteria for us for the best-selling course. Yeah, is it the course that has the most amount of stars? Probably, but maybe it's just a first review and it got suddenly the highest score, or maybe this is the most viewed course. It's also not necessary must be there. It's a complex algorithm that defines these criteria, and you can see. Sorry, yeah, we had to reset the state because we added already everything. So Claude says that what you want from me, like everything already is added. So let's try to simply reload. But we will see in a minute some judgments from the agent that, okay, it says, there is no label, I don't know, I made such a decision based on the information available. And other agents might think differently and they might use their own criteria to identify the best-selling course. So we lose these deterministic things for agents, and they can go in many different directions, and this is definitely not what we want, yeah? Because it might directly impact their sales of our online store, especially in the future when agents will be doing this more and more. And this is the problem which WebMCP actually solves, because instead of scraping data, analyzing data, and makes decisions on its own, we can provide tools, particular tools for the agent that can be called, and all this journey with parsing data and all this stuff can be simply skipped. And yeah, as you can see, as I told already, it said that there is no bestseller, and it added advanced Angular forms because it dominates by metrics which agent decided to be the main ones. So how we can solve this issue with WebMCP? So I prepared a simple demo, and this is how it looks like. So inside app config, you can define this function, provide experimental WebMCP tools. And here we define the name of the tool and description, which is, by the way, very important because this is what agent will be using in order to understand if it needs to use this tool or not. Also, we can define the input schema. This is the parameters that can be provided to this tool. And we have execute function. This is where we already perform certain logic that we need. And in my case, I simply return bestseller courses that probably stored on the backend. So I go to the backend, I fetch the data and return it. And if we try to restart it to make sure that nothing is corrupted, and let's reload our page and try to ask Claude perform the same thing once again. Stop, sorry. Because this is very new thing, agents by default, they don't go and check for these tools, and you have to explicitly say that use web MCP tools if available. So like that. Because this this protocol was announced, I think, this February. It's just yeah, less than half year ago. So models, they not immediately pick them up. Yeah, so it will start to evaluate. It's like sometimes people think that it will make agent faster. Not necessary. It will make it less chaotic. It will give more like prediction to your website. But I mean, sometimes it might be faster, definitely, in some cases. But I didn't notice that agents perform faster on my website when I use and when I provide tools. Okay, and now you can see that agent could recognize the get bestseller tool, and in fact, there are two best sellers, yeah, which have been eventually added. And in such a way, we already get the result. The correct result, the deterministic result. It doesn't matter how many times I will run this prompt. Every time I will get the same things as the output. And there will not be a situation when we every time get the different results. So yeah, the last thing I would like to show is that yeah, if you need to extend things and, for example, make your tools more flexible, you can also extend the tool with different properties. For example, we can provide the sorting, the order by criteria for that, and these things will be added, can be fetched right here, and you can then provide them as an argument to your service. And this is something that agents also can easily interact with it, and you can make your prompt even more advanced and say that, give me the bestseller course that was recently updated. And it will use, for example, this criteria updated at, and yeah, will be more flexible and will give you more accurate and more flexible results. So this is how Web MCP works. Again, it's experimental thing for you to play around. It's not a production-ready solution. It changes very fast because, yeah, it's under active development. It is supported by Google Chrome only so far. I have no idea if it will be supported by other browsers like Mozilla, Firefox, or Safari. Safari maybe never. It's our new Internet Explorer. Yeah, but Google Chrome, yeah, it supports. You can play with it, and I think this is everything I would like to share with you today. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for that amazing talk. Question time. Here you go.
Thank you. I think you're going to kill me because I have 5 questions.
Oh, yeah, nice. Yeah, let's go.
Just stop me or maybe take someone else if you're bored. So yeah, thank you very much. This is very nice tools. Going backwards, because you mentioned just the Web MCP tools, is there a decorator version of how to add Web MCP functions? Because I think it's not intuitive to have like a central spot for it, but I would like to go into the order service or a catalog service and add a decorator, add get bestsellers, and define that this is an MCP function?
No, there is no decorator right now. You can provide it only using this function. But what I didn't mention, and that's a good question, by the way, is that not necessarily it must be provided on the root level, the root injector. It might be provided on the router injector, for example. So the MCP tool can be enabled only when user enters a particular root or when some service is being instantiated, because you can call this function also inside the constructor of the particular service or class or forms. They also support it, and you can enable a particular tool for a particular form. For example, if you have some conversation with a chatbot and you want to fill out the form based on this conversation, it can be done by the tools that registered exactly for the form.
Okay, thanks. So second question, like the end-to-end testing workflow for me, when I look at this, would basically be Claude, write me some playwright tests based on what you identified in the website. Have you experimented with this?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Unfortunately, I didn't explore yet end-to-end testing in context of this new tool. I didn't have time for that, so I cannot tell you exactly what would be the best practice to do that. But yeah, so far it is so. But I think it should work because it's end-to-end test happens in the browser actually, and WebMCP tool is supported exactly by browsers. By the way, this is another limitation I forgot to mention, is that it works only on the browser. It needs the browser instance, because if your agent will fetch the URL, even if you have registered WebMCP tools, they will be ignored. So it needs exactly the browser. So yeah, the agent has to interact with it. But about end-to-end tests, I cannot say anything exactly right now.
Okay, maybe homework for next time.
You can use playwright the right way to flow using Chromium. You can set up, I especially work with automation with a playwright, so you can integrate with Chrome.
Yeah. So theoretically, it should be possible, but I don't want to, say something I'm not sure about.
Okay. Then regarding the what was it called? Web code gen scorer.
Yeah.
So those are more or less, it's not static, but it's not architecturally investigating the generated code, right?
It's more about, from what I see, it's more about code style, code quality, I would say. But architecture, I think it's theoretically possible. So you can ask, because you can enter any prompt, you can describe agent to follow, to implement particular architecture, and ask evaluation model to focus exactly on the architectural point of view of the result. And you can create your own rating that will be evaluating exactly this criteria.
So there is an LLM also used in the evaluation, and not only in the generation of the...
You can create a rating where another LLM will be, reviewing their output. The only thing is that architecture, it's something that has scale, right? It's not something tiny, a few components, it's not enough to test the architecture, I think so. Maybe architecture of the component, on the component level, yes, but at scale, it needs a lot of kind of entities involved, but you should keep in mind that it costs money. Yeah, so it might be not cost efficient to test an architecture.
This is why I asked about local LLM usage for this specific topic, but sorry, I meant architectural compliance, more or less, because if you have a agent file, an agent MD that tells you should implement functions not more than once and refactor if blah, 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 you know, then this wouldn't be covered by the standard evaluation, right? But
Yeah,
you could
I
use an
think-
LLM as a prompt.
Yeah, I think you could just come up with a prompt with a use case that's like, let's say, tricky one that might cause model to create duplication of the code and things like that. And yeah, you can then ask evaluation model to check exactly these criteria if the model come up with the useful abstraction you expected in the output. So you could do things like that. It's just depends on the use case, and yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, final question. Wait, where was I? Ah, yeah. I'm not sure if you know something like JCodeMunch or something like this. Like it's a plugin or an MCP for indexing the code base. So it increases token efficiency because the LLM doesn't have to go through all the files. And JCodeMunch, yeah, it's the first one that's in the list. And I just talked with Claude, and it said like there's some LSP plugin for Claude. So maybe you've experience with this one.
No, I didn't see it before.
So my question is basically, yeah. So what is the best practice for keeping token efficiency up using tools like LSP or JCodeMunch?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. I will read about it definitely.
Okay.
Because these tools appear so fast, I have no time to catch all of them. So yeah.
Okay, so I'm finished. Thank you very much for the answers and for the talk. Okay.
We got follow-up questions.
Thank you. Thank you for the talk.
Yep.
I struggled with working with MCPs, and thank you also to showing us the web MCP. What I'm asking by myself is, how much time should I invest? Should I build my own MCP server, like the Angular has the CLI MCP? Now you came with the web MCP, and how you has showing us you can define it by themselves. It's like you have not to be then a developer, but the salesman, like how to define it. How do you see the future about MCPs? How much should we, like develop by ourselves the MCPs?
Well, it's a good question. Regarding the standard MCP, I would say, like a couple of weeks ago, I would say that MCP was beaten by skills in most of the cases. Skills, they more context efficient, they way easier, they like have a lot of advantages, and they took over a lot of MCP's work. So we were close to say that MCP is dead, but recently, just few days ago or so, they introduced their stateless MCPs. They updated this protocol, which eliminates a lot of pain points of the previous MCP standard. So it seems like MCP got the, the next chance to be more used. Let's see how it will continue. I have no idea so far, but it seems like this protocol will stay, and it actually quite useful sometimes. Regarding web MCP, I think it's like we have different stages when we develop like mobile first applications and etc. Now we will be developing agent first. So we will be adopting it to make it easier to interact with agents, because it seems like everything goes that agents will be talking to agents and they need interface that slightly different from our the way how we interact with UIs, and it seems like we will need to do like so-called headless or UI-less functionality also to have our services more like agent friendly, because the more and more we delegate this to the agents, and I see it's one of the ways how we will be designing the future. So we will have UI-less version of our component, and we have version for human. Maybe some applications will be completely, UI-less. Who knows? We don't know it yet. And by the way, I saw recently, just discovered that you can set up a special WebMCP tool. This is from extension to debug the WebMCPs. And actually, when you enter different web pages, you will see if they have these tools. And I saw there today anthropic.com, somewhere in docs, and they had actually tools. Where's the docs? Pricing overview. Okay, let's do cloud docs. So I was glad to see that this protocol is being adopted by other big players. Okay, now I don't see. Maybe it was a specific page, but I saw there some page that I cannot currently find. Sorry?
Do you need the HTML?
No, I mean WebMCP. Yeah, WebMCP. And they had something like fetch documentation tool, so it's they also tried to play with this protocol on their side. Yeah. Thank you.
Do we have more questions?
Yeah.
Here we go.
No, I saw Claude read the module context from a navigator, and it was recently shifted to document. So my question, was done by what you put in config TS? Like, can you show the output of the Claude? It was written.
Of the Claude?
Yeah, it was read from navigator module context, and it seemed probably fallback, but and which version of Angular do you use for this? Because the last one is 22, right? 22nd.
Yeah. And I think it's from Angular 21. It's available.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
So
but
what I wanted to say that they shifted from navigator model context to document model context, and interesting why Angular put it to navigator.
Yes, you're right. I don't know, maybe they created a...
Actually, we can do it without Angular, just using document and register all this. But strange why new Angular put it on navigator and not on document, but I will check it as well.
Good question.
Okay, I will check. Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
but I also saw this update that they moved.
Because actually, if we write it by ourselves, we need to put it on document and not on navigator.
Yes, but for that, it's better to read documentation because it
strange
changes
because
very
both this API is from Google and Angular is from Google, why not synced? Okay, but thank you for good speech. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Just a small question, comment about the WebMCP. For example, with buying, because you can provide different information just to the bot than you would give to normal users. Is there a whole playground for phishing, for new tricking to sell you more expensive courses because you give different data to the bot that you wouldn't see on the website directly?
Yeah, security, it's big topic to discuss actually. And some of so it has problems with the security, and it was raised by Safari team, the WebKit team. I saw that proposal on the GitHub. I cannot find the link there, but they also raised questions similar to what you answered, and Google team say that we will investigate this. So, yeah. Still, again, it's an experiment. It's more for you, like, play with it, give you a direction of how this whole story evolves. And yeah, because it's experimental, it's not ready for production. Yeah, we should consider that too. But yeah.
Any more questions? Looking good? Everyone satisfied? Then big applause.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the great talk. So, next point will be the Raffle. Are you having a quick small break while I get the Raffle tickets ready for you guys? Or are you on time? Because we were not on time tonight, so you can stay a little longer, a little bit. There's plenty of beer in the fridge, so you're all more than welcome to stay a little longer. Just give me a couple of minutes to prepare the tickets, and then we do the Raffle.
Myślała dodać, że...